According to the cloud. We're recording. Welcome. This is Wes Hewitt. It's December 16th, 2021, and it's 6 p.m. And this is the INCOSE Finger Lakes Chapter monthly / Zoom meeting, hosted by our fearless president, Teresa. Take it away.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody. Next slide. The first couple slides, no changes from before. Here's all our board of directors. And the next slide.
That's not me.
Okay, next slide. Okay, this shows all the chapter circle awards that we've won over the years. So we won another silver last year. And in the process of doing our submission for this year, as they're due January 2nd. Nice timing.
Can I just mention really quick that I joined right here when we got all the golds?
Oh, are you trying to say there's a correlation there?
I'm just saying, okay?
Okay, just saying. Okay, next. So today, our agenda, I'm briefly going to cover chapter activities. And then we're going to, where did this come from?
Oh, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the SAP program. I was, because we're
okay.
going to talk about our experiences. So I
Yeah.
decided to I got a 1-slider or 2-slider.
Oh, okay. And then the panel discussions, Gopala should be calling in, Wes, Eric. I hope he comes on, and Susan's already on. So first they're going to cover,
Teresa.
huh?
Hey, this is Gopal. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Welcome. So I'm glad you made it.
Hi there.
Thank you.
Glad to have you, Gopal.
Hi.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
they've either have certified CSAP or ESAP in process. So they're going to talk about some of their experiences, lessons learned, that sort of thing. And then you can ask questions. We'll have a Q&A time. Now, when I sent out the flyer, I did say that if people couldn't make the meeting, but they had any questions, they could send them to me and we would cover them, but I didn't get any. So it's just us. And after that, the last thing we want to know is what we can do, what our chapter can do to help everybody. And that can be anything that you think may be helpful. I mean, you may just want a name and contact of somebody you can go to ask questions or to look over something, or it could be very specific, like I've never done reliabilities, or somebody I can talk to about it, or you may want a class on the handbook. So anything goes there. So you can bring up whatever you'd like. Okay, and then I think I had one more. Yeah, on chapter activities. So this is old. We still have 2 openings for board members. So you have to be a chapter member. So if anybody's interested, see me. And we're still working our end of year items, our financial audit for the year, and our chapter word submission. Our next chapter meeting will be January 20th. At this time, we don't have a speaker lined up yet. Stay tuned, and happy holidays, and please be safe. So I'm going to turn it over to the panel now. Or Wes, you had wanted to talk about the SEP process. Wes?
I was muted.
Oh, are you
Okay.
done then?
Yeah, I did. Any questions?
Yeah, what did you say?
Oh, sure. Make me repeat myself. Okay. So we basically have 3 certification levels, and that's kind of what the 4 of us have accomplished. You know, the ASAP is probably the best one for young students, new students, people who just get out of college who maybe don't quite have the experience, but they want to prove that they're dedicated. And there's the CSEP, is which I have, and it's for general practitioners with at least 5 years experience. And then there's the ESEP, the more experienced, with some kind of a proven engineering leadership which helps you get that. And it's usually about 10 years of experience. So, and they give you a certificate and I think a link to an email certification you can put on your correspondence if you want, and a really cool looking pen. So it's very important. Okay, so I think one of the foot stompers here is why is certification important? And so it is a formal recognition. I'd actually had gotten a certification through Lockheed Martin when I was there, but it's nice having something that's more independent than from my work. Okay, so it provides a discriminator for you in job applications. So it's definitely helpful there. Provides a competitive advantage in your career because you actually get exposed through the process of becoming an experienced system engineer, a whole lot of different skills. And when you go through the workbook in the knowledge test and what we go through at Cornell, it really exposes you to the breadth of system engineering and what that really is. So just knowing, being aware of something is better than not knowing. Okay, you don't have to be 10 miles deep, but having the broad knowledge can be very helpful. Okay, so let's see. So let's see here. So here's basically the three things about for the juniors, the graduates. Okay, when you go for CSEP, usually it's after 5 years experience. I think this is good for 5 years, the ASEP, where the CSEP's good for every 3 years. You just have to renew it. Okay, and then the ESEP, I think once you get an ESEP, you don't have to renew it. And there is no knowledge test when you take go through the ESEP process. So you always have to be a member. Everyone, if you'd mute your phones, I'm getting some feedback. So you always have to be a member in good standings to be eligible for your active standing as the certification. So just FYI. Okay, panel discussion. Turn it back to you, Teresa.
Okay, so Susan, did you want to go first?
Okay, that's up to you.
Yep. You sound
good
well
evening,
prepared.
Good evening. I'm Susan Urban, and I'm in the process of going through the ESEP, the Expert Systems Engineer Professional, and it's characterized by extensive system engineering experience and technical leadership. And in my particular case, I don't have an ASEP or a CSEP, so then I must document in the application 25 years of relevant system engineering experience. So part of it is the relevant education. And so in the application, they have criteria. In my particular case, I'm a student here at Cornell and sort of at the tail end of my master's program in system engineering. And I've had a class with Wes for it, but so that is a criteria for them. As Wes mentioned, it's not necessary that I pass the INCOSE exam, but I did through the Cornell program. What is different though, is that I must go through an interview with INCOSE for it. A key part is that I'm to provide references for the last 10 years of relevant experience. And why I emphasize relevant experience is that as you go forward in your career, you start off working on system engineering type problems, but then often you move into management type positions. Well, those are not considered the relevant system engineering ones. They're really focused on what are you doing from a technical perspective. So even though they may be looking for 10 years of references of relevant experience, it may take you 13 years or 14 years to be able to collect the 10 years of relevant experience for it. And I'll talk a little bit more about references because that turns out to be very challenging overall. In my case, at the ESEP, it costs $630 to apply and it's non-refundable. So that's something that you have to plan because that's a lot of money. I was fortunate that my company sponsored that. I had the interesting situation. I looked at the price earlier this year. It was $590. I went through all the approval processes. And then when I went to submit my application in August, of course, the fee went up. And in corporate America, that means you start all over again with the approval process.
Oh, no.
And it was at the end of the fiscal year. So that made it even more exciting. But you learn through this application process that of engaging and negotiating with people, and so that, you know, you can move forward with it. And it worked out, but of course it added a bit of excitement there that I didn't want.
Yeah.
From the application, submitting all the references that are needed, the review and the decision-making, there is a one-year time limit from the time that you submit your application. So that's important that you recognize that once you submit it, the clock does start to tick on that overall. Before I submitted the application, I started collecting data months ahead. I submitted the application in August. It took 3 months to actually get all the references through that were required. And so at this stage now, my application is considered complete for review. And so they'll submit it to a review committee, and then they'll schedule my interview at some time in the future overall. A little bit of lessons learned from all of this is you somewhat have to view this as a project in itself, especially for the ESEP, not for the other certifications necessarily, but for this one you do. It's important to review the INCOSE application to see if you even meet the qualifications for the number of years that they want for technical leadership. For the ESEP, it requires to have either where you have an advanced degree, or that you are you teach courses such as a professor, or that you have taken on a technical leadership role. And in my particular case, I had an advanced degree. I actually completed a master's in system engineering at the University of Maryland quite a while ago, and I'm taking the Cornell one to refresh myself. But I was in the role of a chief engineer for several organizations. And so that's the type of role they're looking for. And it's very specific down to the number of months that you need to be in these various roles for it overall. And so one of the challenges is I wanted to be very sure in the number of months that I had. I actually contacted the HR department at my company and asked them to run all the queries on when did I transfer departments, because then that would really remind me as to when did I move to different projects, when did I take on different roles or various promotions overall. But what happens is even the HR group, they went through how many HR systems. So it took them many weeks to go through each one of those systems to go back that many years to get the actual dates for me. But again, they were willing to do that. That's part of this whole part, is negotiating and working with people to produce the type of data that you need. And I wanted to be sure of that in my application. So that is a suggestion. The challenge may be for people if they have multiple companies that they go back to get these kind of dates. And so in collecting resumes, what I found, and this is somewhat of a recommendation, especially for the early career people, is that when I update my resume, I usually keep 1 or 2 versions back. I don't have all the resumes I ever had from the very beginning. And as you continue to write your resumes, you focus more on your more prominent roles that you've taken on, while your early career work, I had a tendency to minimize that, or to summarize that in that sense. So over the years, I don't have all those years back as to the work that I did. And so it really is important to keep all the copies of those resumes. And like everybody, you've gone through how many laptops, you get all your data migrated, but then tracing all back to that, it takes time to do that. And so it really is important for people to keep copies of all their resumes in those versions with those details, or your annual performance reviews of that, and even making a list of all the documents you ever were part of as an author or co-author. I know everyone thinks, oh, I'll never forget that. You do forget that as time goes by, especially as life gets busier. Say you have a family, all of a sudden, all these things are filling your mind and you do forget. So it's important to sort of build that history because then you'll have it readily at hand as opposed to going to look for it overall. So the other thing is it's important to write if on the resume or have just in your notes is who are the people you worked with so that you could use them as a reference. It's easy also to forget who are those people that you worked with. I mean, they were the dearest friends you had coffee with them, you knew everything about their family. But as years go by and as you take on greater technical roles, you also then work on many more projects and interact with so many people. So it is important to write down, just even if you do your annual review, who are the people I worked with so that they could be a reference for you in the future overall. And the one thing that was interesting about INCOSE is that they wanted to know who a supervisor is as a reference. And they expand the definition of supervisors, not literally only your supervisor. It could be someone else who is such as a chief engineer or a subject matter expert who is at a higher level than you or has greater experience, who can then describe that the work that you actually did for it. Also in completing the application, I used the INCOSE terminology. To me, it was slightly different than what my resumes had been in the past. So I did more of a translation to align with their terminology to show and indicate the areas that I did support. Because in the application, you're to have a variety of experiences, such as with requirements, with design and very topic areas, because they want you to have a breadth of experience overall for it. And so then the challenging part, and INCOSE says this also in getting the application through, is your references. Before I submitted the application, I identified multiple people to cover those years. Originally, I thought I had to have all 25 years of references, which I actually did find people to cover all my 25 years. But then as I was starting to go through it and discovering it's challenging for people to actually complete the reference paperwork. I emailed all of them prior to it, to submitting the application, asking for their support, indicating that the company was going to pay for it. And so that, it was a serious matter. I was going to ask them of submitting the reference. So that helped quite a bit for it. But once the application was submitted, then I was pursuing the references. There are some people that won't be able to help you in that sense, where some other event comes along, and especially during the pandemic, or they have a health issue, or they're just so busy with work. So it's not guaranteed that those people, even though they did confirm they would support you with a reference, that they actually can carry that through. So it's always good to keep some backup references to cover all of those areas. It actually was surprising also out of people. Some people would call me back and said, they fully remembered me, but they were like, what did we really work on? It's surprising.
Refresh my mind.
Exactly. And it wasn't that long ago, years ago, like 5 years ago, not like 15 years ago. I was asking them.
I saw you last week, buddy.
So it's surprising that as people are so busy with a variety of work, or they're going to school, that even to help them. And so sometimes people felt a little awkward to admit that they really forgot some of the details of the work that, we had worked on. They remembered many unusual conversations or things of that nature, but it's like they needed that refresher. And so I often offered to them is, oh, would you want to chat and go through the paperwork? There is specific examples of the reference reply that they're to provide to INCOSE. And they also give a sample of what a filled out looks like. But I'll be honest, for people that are very busy, it's like almost like a college application. It felt to them. It looked serious. And then they would read it, and it was a little intimidating to most, to be quite honest, because it seemed like they were signing away their life. And so they did need some hand holding on that. And because they weren't familiar with it, it was like opening to do new taxes. It seemed quite a big project to them, even though it's straightforward, but it just was something that it was easy to push to the side if they didn't have someone help them through it and talk them through the reference part. And again, INCOSE says that's the biggest thing that delays the applications overall, is getting the references. And in some cases, people never get them done because it is challenging in that way. I think some of my colleagues took it too seriously almost, but they were so down to each word they were analyzing. And I was like, no, you got to keep it in perspective.
Type A people are the worst.
Pardon?
Type
Pardon?
A people.
Yes.
Gotta have more B people in your life.
Well, the paperwork looks so serious. It's so formal in that regard. So they took it that way.
Yeah.
It took me overall 3 months. I did work quite a bit with the admins to encourage people and remind. And so I had to sometimes have multiple tactics to get the reference to actually complete it, but I successfully did. And actually it turned out to be almost like a reunion where it was nice to catch up with all of these people all of these years. And so that was actually a very positive surprise for me overall of reaching out to all of these people. And then the last thing is that the INCOSE email that's listed for the contact, I remember Teresa one time you told me, oh, just go email them. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'll ever hear from them, but it turns out they're extremely responsive. So that is one thing. And so what if they're, I don't know what the latest email is, or it just comes up in my address, but if you use that, it's usually within the next day, or often it's that same day they actually respond. So that's my overall experience. So mine is submitted. And so now I'm just waiting for my interview to be scheduled.
Yeah, I think they meet monthly or something.
So we'll see.
Yeah, maybe January. You should know something. So.
Well, Susan, I have a question on those references.
Yes.
I haven't seen what they have to fill out, but would it be possible to kind of pre-fill some of it for them?
There's a portion, it's not very much. It's only like a few lines about what helped several of the people is I provided to them the dates that I worked with them. And I gave them my actual application. So in the application, I detail every project, and you have up to 7 you can have in there. That's part of the original application, where you write then all of the system engineering work that you completed. And so I provided that to them to remind them, because they're not going to remember the dates, first of all, and to refresh their memory about the work. But even reading that, since I wrote it with the INCOSE terminology, it was slightly different than what my company normally uses of their vocabulary for it. But even then, there's the actual reference form. There's a sample of the reference form. There's my application. There's instructions. And so to them, that was too many attachments to open, to be truthful. They felt a little overwhelmed. So then I would walk them through for it. And then it was fine. I mean, I worked through each person.
So maybe even having a Zoom meeting with them so you could do a face-to-face.
Yes, and walk through that. It did help them. It did. And it you know, and I kept it light in the sense that if they admitted that they forgot some of the work we did, you know, and it's just, okay, that's fine. Everyone's busy, you know, I understand that. And so keeping it light, I think, helped them. And then going over some of their concerns, like, were they officially my supervisor or not? Well, that's not what INCOSE stated. It's not necessary. They do have the criteria. Like I had a gentleman who had a PhD in math that I worked with. And so I considered him a superior in that sense, and that was fine.
So, but your references were people from your company, right?
Yes, people I worked with on my projects, yes.
Okay, I can't imagine how hard it would be if you worked at multiple companies to go back and you know, how do you twist their arm to help? I mean, is there a basic form people can get people to do before they leave a company or something? If they're planning on going on this track, maybe, Is there something
They
they,
could, the reference forms are out there. Anybody can download them. They have instructions for them. That's actually a good suggestion for it. And it is challenging because, to be quite honest, it's to the person, first of all, it's not required I have this for my job, that I get this certification. The other people are all very busy. So you're trying to convince this person to do this for you. And it does take energy, and you do have to somewhat have a relationship with them for them to be willing to do that, to add that to their to-do list, to be quite honest. So I had the benefit of many of these people, I had through the years stayed in touch with, and they happen to still be at my company.
Yeah,
which is
that's fortunate.
unusual. Very
Yeah.
unusual, very unusual. Some of them a couple I didn't interact with directly, but I did everything through their admins. And so I became their best friends, and then to the admins, and then worked it.
oh, that was good. But it's something for people, especially younger in their career, starting off, to think of things like this. Because it's hard enough to get people you work with sometimes to do these, but someone you haven't seen or they have no connection with you now, it's,
Yes.
yeah.
And it is that challenge. It really is. It's worthwhile for ones that are in their early career or are still like in the engineering program. Go through the ESEP now even, because just see what is the criteria. Like even for the first time I read it, I was surprised that there had to be so many years or months of technical leadership in their criteria. And it was like, oh, by the way, I already did that. But that may influence what roles people take on. Meaning, okay, they want to pursue a chief engineer position, or a director of a laboratory, or teaching, or things of that nature, because that's required as part of this. So it gives you sort of insights as to what people consider desirable positions or skills. So I agree, Teresa.
Anybody else have any questions for Susan before we move to CSEPs? No? Okay, well, thank you very much, Susan.
You're welcome.
Now, who wants to go next, West or Gopala?
Coppola.
Wes, can you take this? I'm still on the commute, so I'll be able to talk in a few minutes. If you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Eric, are you ready?
I don't think Eric Shepherd is on.
He was on the phone, I thought. Okay, I'll do it. I unlike Susan, I did work for multiple companies, starting from the Air Force as a system engineer, and worked several contracting. I couldn't hold a job down like Susan could, but so it was a little more. But the advantage is I did not apply for the E. I just applied for the regular certification, and I'd already got a certification through Lockheed Martin at Owego. And so the only reason I got my certification was because my students wanted to get certified, and I was going to take the test with them, trying to encourage them. And that's when we were first starting up the Cornell INCOSE program. So I didn't have to go back 25 years, thank the Lord. I only had to go back about 10. And even then I found a lot of dead people, oh yeah, he's gone. Or, I had one friend, he said he couldn't remember back that far, so I took him off my Christmas list. But I think I thought they sent out, you give them addresses and then they send out the forms, right, to them?
Actually, it's supposed to work that way, but right now their site is not, there's a bug.
Oh, really? Because
Yes.
I think I just put in the addresses and names, and I contacted everybody on the phone. First of all, I asked their permission, that I could use them.
Right.
And that was a good idea. Send him your application. I don't think I did that. I think I just told him and reminded him, what we did. And most of them, were frightfully scary. Remember who I was. So, again, you want to keep good records. You want to keep your evaluations, like Susan said. That's a wonderful thing because every year you document what you do and you get your boss to sign off on it. Those are wonderful records to keep, at least while you're actively working. Have a file, of resumes and evaluations, because when you start doing this now so for a CSEP, I only had to go back. You'd only have to go back 5 years, but I went back 10, because I had the experience behind me. Of course, I did study for the test. I studied with the students. We all got together. Plus, I was helping to write the curriculum. So that was a really big advantage for me because it did force me to go through the whole book and take the test. And I think it's about a 50%. It's not a trivial 132 questions. And then Courtney told me, oh yeah, we threw in some experimental questions on you too. And I said, oh, great, thanks. And yeah, too bad you got that one wrong. We'll have to throw that out next time, So Courtney, what's her last name? White, right. Courtney.Wright at INCOSE.org is the person. If you have any questions too that we can answer or general, you can always email her. Like Susan was saying, they're very responsive to helping you out and answer questions. And obviously for the ASAP, you don't have to worry about all this, not as much detail, obviously, because you're admitting, okay, I don't have 5 years experience, but I have taken the class and I have studied the handbook, and that gives you that breadth of knowledge. You may not be really deep, but you actually probably are a little deep in some areas already based on your projects you've done and things like that. So that can be very helpful. So that's kind of how I got into it. And another thing I always say is, and I told this to Susan, get your company to pay for it. They're the ones that are benefiting this. If you're working, this is a professional education, and it's a continuing education that's very valuable to them because they'll brag on it. They probably have Susan's picture up in billboards now, because she's so smart. Let's say, Susan, I knew right away when I met you, you were a smart lady. So anyway, I used to work at MITRE.
Wes, what was the most difficult part of this? What was that took the longest or was harder than you expected to get through?
Just like Susan was saying, is staying on top of the people that you contact. If they say you need 5 people, you better send out 7 or 8, because there are a few that are just not going to be able to. And you'll be surprised about who boxed too, because I was kind of surprised. One of the persons just, I can't do this. I can't remember. Oh, please. Anyway, so that is the hardest part, waiting. But that's something you can do now. Start gathering the information, make sure you have it later on. The ASAP is great is because it's good for 5 years. They actually have a process of okay, for the 0 to 5 years, you're covered under the ASAP program. And then they expect you really to move on to the CSEP after 5 years. I think you can do it up to 3 times, it said in the literature I was reading, but they do expect you to move on. And if you've previously had another certification, it's actually cheaper to go on to the next one. It's like they give you credit. They're going to get that $630 out of you one way or another, but they'll charge $200 for this, and then the next one will be another $200, and then if you do E, so it's cheaper once you have the certification to go on to the next level. So that's about how I did it. I took the test. I sat for it. I did study for several months with students. We actually had got together broke things up, tried to share notes. We used to call them dirty purples in the military. Anybody know what a mimeograph is? Dirty purples. Anyway, but working with a team, a group is a good way to study. I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here. You guys are experts at studying, right? So if you can't, you got to be pretty disciplined. That's all. It just takes a little more discipline. So,
Well, let me ask you about after you get certified, because there's a Pdu requirement, so many units per so many years. Like, is it 60 in 3 years or something?
yeah. So I kept track on my calendar. Basically, there's a lot of things that qualify
Yeah.
for educational credits or units, and they give you a list of about 9 or 10 different. I don't think, Susan, you have to do PDUs, I think, at all. You don't have to do any of that, I think. I'm not really
Right.
sure. Okay.
That's correct.
Where I do, and I only need to turn it in before I renew my certification every 3 years as a CSEP. And
Yeah.
and
But
Cornell pays for it. So
they
but
also give you like volunteer too. That stuff counts, doesn't it?
well, going to the meetings counts, going to a symposium counts, and I highly recommend everyone to go at least once a year to the international the IS or the IW workshop. They're 6 months apart. In Orlando, well, it used to be in Florida, but the workshop, which has all the INCOSE groups get together in their specialty areas, and you can be a part of any group you want. And they're working on projects and stuff. It's very, very interesting, especially if it's in your particular domain that you're interested. It can be anywhere from coding, to intelligence, artificial intelligence and all kinds of stuff, agile, system engineering, and modeling. SysML, I've known a lot of the guys in the SysML area for over 10, 15 years, actually, in my field. So, and that's how I can get speakers to come.
So you get most of your PDUs then from INCOSE activities.
Yeah, because I do a lot of them anyway. So
Yeah.
I take credit for them, and teaching. I think teaching even counts. I don't remember. Well, I'm involved in the student group, so
Mhm.
that's more credits there because we have meetings all the time. Kevin calls them, all the time. He says, I want a meeting, so counts. Questions? Okay, so it's a lot easier. Susan is going for the big stuff, and she deserves it. She has the credentials to get the master's level. But starting off the ASEP is a really good way to get your foot in the door, and it shows you the job, the employers that you're serious too. So I think it's really helpful, in my personal opinion.
Okay, thanks, Wes.
You're welcome.
Now, Eric never showed up, I don't think.
Yeah, I can talk now, Teresa.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, everybody. Thanks, Wes. Susan was very useful. I have a CSEP certification. As you all know, CSEP stands for Certified Systems Engineering Professional. I took this around like 8 years ago. So I started this because I am working in systems engineering field. I'm an engineer for the rail and transit industry. So I do work a lot of verification and validation activities, day-to-day activities. So I decided, I came to know about INCOSE and by one of my colleagues, and then I took the CSEP exam. It was not very difficult, I would say, because as you work day to day, you know all the concepts. But I did go through the systems engineering INCOSE handbook a few times, and I think that was enough to get through this exam. I mean, if you are working in the industry, if you know, then probably it won't be very difficult. So I think maintaining the certification, I don't think so. We need a PDUs for this CSEP. I think just being a member of INCOSE is enough to retain your CSEP certification. So that was not a problem. And again, I think you guys talked about getting the references, and I know it is very painful. But fortunately for me, I have all my managers are within the same, circle, same industry. So even though I switched companies, it's a small industry, so we keep in touch, and I was able to get the reference pretty easy. It was not a big deal. Again, this CSEP really helped me because to go in the professional life, I would say, because they always ask for it. Like, I'm a consultant, so I frequently get a new project, so I have to get approval from the client side to prove that I have a systems engineering knowledge. So one of the requirements is, or a preferred requirement, I would say, is to have a CSEP or ESEP. So, that actually tells that, okay, you have knowledge on systems engineering side. So it was really, helpful for me to get into this, new projects or new stuff. So other than that, it's just like, I forgot to mention about this chapters. So the first few years, I was not involved in any chapters because I don't have a local chapter here in New York City. But then a few years back, I started again the membership. So I joined the Finger Lake chapter. Then I have, frequently attending the meetings, and Teresa, she sends all the industry conferences links. So I just get into this I'm like kind of involved more nowadays because of the chapter I'm joined here, Finger Lake. So that was really helpful to be in touch with the INCOSE and see what's going on. That was really helpful for me. So other than that, I think pretty much Susan and Wes covered a lot of things. If you have any specific areas or any questions, I can answer.
Anyone have any questions?
Well, I guess not.
Good.
So
Thanks.
you're New York City, you said?
Yeah, I work here in New York City. I
Okay.
don't have we have a lot of systems engineering professional here, but we don't have a chapter here.
Right.
The closest I have is the Finger Lake.
Okay. Well, because we do have quite a few students that go to New York City for jobs too, and I know of several that live there. So if you want to, through our Facebook link, have you joined the Facebook page for our chapter?
No, I have not.
Yeah, so if you ever want to get in touch with any of those, that would be a way to do that too.
Okay, I'll do that.
Good.
Okay, let's get on to the next part then. Now, everybody, we're looking for ideas on what we can do to help you.
So one question I have, I'm more interested on the ASEP certification, being just recently out of college. So one question, I'm assuming everybody that took the CSEP exam that's online, or do we offer any paper exams through the Finger Lakes chapter? And then second question, is all of that question material straight from the INCOSE Systems Engineering Handbook, or is there other topics that are covered?
So maybe I can address that a little bit. We've had the test done at our campus before. That's when I took it, because we had gotten 5 or 6 people who were willing to take it. They were happy to send an exam person there to give the test, but we've never actually taught the test. But to answer the other question, except for the class that we have now, but the other question too is the material is, as far as I know, 99% all the handbook, the system engineering handbook, which, just FYI, is they're probably in the process of updating it to version 5 here. I would guess sometime in the next year.
Yeah, next year is sometime they're going to release it.
So just FYI, if depending on, how much study you've done in the current version, which is a lot better version than the previous one. I had looked at version 3 and I hated it. I still like the way it was written and format, but anyway, it's a lot better now. So, but yeah, it's mostly it's all the handbook.
Wes, do you know about, once they release a new handbook, about how much time it takes before they say, okay, now the test is based on this new one? Do you remember that?
I think it's about a year before they change
Okay.
the test.
So then we're saying that if you've been studying the current handbook,
They'll
you
set a
get
date.
like a year.
They'll tell you when the last test is.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be at an IW or at an IS. They usually give those exams if you show up for free, if you go to in person. In the past, that's what they did. And who knows what they're going to do in the future, but that was always a good way to save $80.
Yeah, and I thought they had a way of doing it online now. They developed something so that, because of COVID.
I haven't seen it though.
Oh,
I don't know.
they've been talking about it, yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
because they couldn't get people together, so.
Right.
Did that answer your questions?
Kyle?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And then one more question. From what I've seen on the INCOSE website, I don't see a lot of like practice exams. I'm not sure if that's something that's made available or not.
They had some limited material for a while. It wasn't, most people said it wasn't really that helpful. So they've never really tried to get into that business. There are several companies that actually will do that. You pay for them and they have prep courses for them, and they probably have their own databases, I guess, but I've never done that. But there was one out there for a while online somewhere, but it may be gone because it was pretty old.
But you said that it was straightforward, right, from the handbook?
Yeah, but Handbook's got a lot of information in it.
Yeah,
It's not a comic book.
right, but I'm thinking more like the PMI test that, you got to drink the right color Kool-Aid, I guess. Some of those are kind of tricky, that's what I mean.
Yeah, Paula said it was easy.
Okay, very good. That answers all my questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, anybody else? Any ideas on what we could do in the future to help you? Is somebody speaking? Mark, we can't hear you.
Oh, well. So just to go around the room here, Natish, do you have any questions or ideas? Comments?
Oh, here's the question in the chat for Susan. For Mark.
Oh, the
Can you
interview?
please- Yeah.
She hasn't had it yet, have you?
I haven't had it yet, and I don't have much information about it, so it'll be interesting for me to see even the duration they have for it, and so then I'll ask them when they schedule it. They just said an interview. I don't know if there's multiple people who interview me or just one person, or if they validate my application, or if I don't think they're going to be quizzing me about technical information or such.
So when you do this, Susan, can you put together something so we could put it out there?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
how long it is or something, you know, whatever you can do to help people, and then we
Yeah.
can get it out.
Would you,
right. I'll
would you
share
wear a
my
mic?
experience.
Huh?
I'll
Gonna-
record it. They'll
we're gonna
probably be
wire
done on
you.
Zoom. Right.
I'm
There'll
sorry.
be a story. There
Yeah.
will be a story. I'll tell you.
They'll sweep you. No, you'll do well.
Okay.
So did anyone else? Let's see, Eric, Lo, did you have any questions?
Kevin?
If there's no other questions, I'll interject one more time.
Go
Sure.
ahead.
So from an ASAP perspective, it certainly seems to make sense to me for career development, but I guess I'm curious for the CSEP and ESEPs, what the motivation was to pursue certification. And then also from your experiences, what organizations or companies look for certified engineering professionals?
I had a slide actually for that. Quite a few. Lockheed Martin is one of the bigger supporters. We have quite a few big supporters, and they contribute a lot to the program because a lot of large companies like MITRE too, they wanted a certification program, but they didn't really want to manage it, you know, because of the overhead and the personnel issues. I think that's my personal opinion, but they contributed a lot, and therefore it means more to them, some of these larger companies. And there's several European companies that are pretty involved in it.
Yeah, I know SAIC is big in it.
Yeah, I mean, I do see a lot of requirements on the rail industry. It's not, CSEP is not very well known, but still, like, I do see sometimes they require people with CSEP as a preferred qualification to work on the systems engineering projects. So, it helps, I would say, in my experience. So if you have a CSEP, if you are in the systems engineering, it really helps.
Yeah, and going to some of these workshops, you're going to meet people from all kinds of industries who are involved, and you really get a flavor that a lot of
Okay.
people do care about it.
We have another question in the chat regarding ASAP. What is the passing marks for the exam?
They don't advertise that, what the passing grade is for the exam, but we currently, for Cornell, we use 85% as the passing grade for the course. And or you don't get the endorsement for INCOSE. And they didn't balk at that. So I don't know if that's close or not. But that was approved by them.
Kyle, to respond to your question before, for myself personally, it was the fact that I passed the exam. And so it was also Wes who sort of piqued my interest in pursuing to go forward with the INCOSE certification. But it's also just personal satisfaction of all the years I've been involved with system engineering and my formal education with it, that I would feel like, well, why wouldn't I have applied? And since I've been able to get corporate sponsorship for everything, I'm like, why not? It's not actually costing me anything. It's just effort.
With time and effort.
Yeah. And so to me, it's like I would, and it does help where it shows that I am serious about system engineering in my work. In addition to my degrees with system engineering, it's the fact that of going through INCOSE, and you do learn a lot about system engineering from engaging with INCOSE. So it does convey to people that you're very serious about staying current and the rigor associated with it. So I think you meet a lot of people along the way that we've had some amazing presenters at this group. They're quite impressive in their backgrounds. And so I think it helps you grow.
Eric, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I'm just wondering if there's any benefits to applying the CSEP while having the ASEP certification active versus waiting till it expires after 5 years, then apply for the CSEP. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wes or Gopala?
Sir Kapala, did you take the ASEP or just the CSEP?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. No, I took the CSEP. So I mean, because I have experience like close to like 9 years at the time. So I thought like I have enough experience to take the CSEP. So I just took that straight.
So they give you 5 years from ASEP to renew, and you can renew. I think it says the ASEP up to 3 times, I think, or twice, and so that'd be 15 years. The only, and they give you to advance to the CSEP. If you've already taken the test, you don't have to retake the test, the knowledge test. Once you pass it, you've passed it. As long as you don't have a break in membership, I think. If you have a break in membership, all bets might be off. I'm not sure. You'd have to talk to them about that.
Okay,
So-
thanks, Wes. So does this mean that for the students who pass the course, they would not have to retake the test if they want to renew it after 5 years?
That they don't have to take the test at all if they get an 85% in 5100.
Understood. Thank you.
So that saves you money and a lot of time because you've already done a lot of work
That's true.
on the
time
guide.
is planned already. So.
And that's why we make you read all that stuff and write those papers.
True.
Okay, there's another one on the chat. Within how many days are we supposed to take exam for ASEP after becoming an INCOSE member?
Well, you could become a member anytime. It's when you apply. So the first step of getting your certification is you first have to join INCOSE as a regular member or a student member. You just can't be a cap, with on the company side. But and then once you're a member, you can apply. And I think that's when the year starts. And you have to take the test with that period. So that really is your first step, is checking out the website for INCOSE and signing up either as a student if you're an active student, or also if you're employed, see if your company will pay for that. It's compared to, I think, some of the other certifications, I think it's probably still a bargain. So that's the biggest thing, is you have to pay your fee and you get a receipt, and you could always submit that as an expense item for that. So, and then you have to pay the fee for the test. Well, you don't have to take the test. There's an application fee, I think. Then after joining, then you have to pay another $150 or something for whichever one you're doing certification. Okay.
Isn't there a time limit that after in the 5100 pass, that then you have to enjoy? It's only 1 year if you pass the exam, right?
Yeah, I think that's I believe that's what they said. That's good for a year. It's like taking your test. I think they're giving you could take the test anytime, and again, that's only good for a year.
Right.
So Courtney Wright, you can go to the website and you can under who we are or something, the people behind, you can see their faces, and I think they give email addresses. So if you have any questions, or you can always ask us. Okay.
Anybody have any other questions or suggestions?
if anyone's wondering when the list will be out, if you're taking 5100 now, usually Marcy gets it out to, she sends a list to INCOSE, usually about within 30 days of the end of the class, and she should have it. You can always, you should be able to do the application anytime, and that credit will come through. You may have to follow up on it though, just make sure.
Okay,
Okay.
last chance. Okay, well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, panelists. Oh, wait, there's a message here. Hold on.
Says thanks.
Oh,
You're
okay.
very welcome, everybody. We meet once a month. We won't be coming back until next January. But if you want to go out to the Cornell Facebook page, that's where I post stuff, announcements and things like that for students and alumni. So you can always stay on the Facebook page as long as you want. Just look for Cornell Division, Student Division and COSE, or some therefore combination of words.
Okay, well, for those of you getting PDUs, tonight's meeting will count as one.
That's right.
So there you go. Oh, Kevin was nice enough to put the link to your Facebook in the chat.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, Kevin.
It only asks 3 easy questions. It's a private group, so we try to keep the lurkers out. So, okay, everybody. Is that it?
Yep, that's
Teresa?
it. Well, everybody enjoy the holidays.
I'll post this video if someone wants to review it. It should be on our,
It's in our normal place for our meetings. So,
right. If you can't find it, let us know.
yeah.
To Teresa dot,
Yeah, you can do that.
yeah, send it to Teresa.
Send it to me.
Okay, everybody.
Okay, thanks and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone.